Hey there, folks. Welcome to Broadband Deployment News. The FCC has launched their Enhanced Competition Incentive Program, which is a program that incentivizes those that hold spectrum, mobile spectrum, to share that spectrum with rural providers or small operators. Be right back with the details. Thanks for joining me today. Rick Uzzi with Zcorum with Broadband Deployment News. So I want to make you aware of this. If you're a rural operator, a small carrier that might want to provide mobile services or fixed wireless, maybe 5G fixed wireless services, and spectrum can be expensive, hard to come by sometimes. Sometimes the bigger operators will snap that up. So the FCC had been working on this program, and actually the report and order for it was back from July of 2022. So it's taken that amount of time to get comments and those kinds of things, get it into the Federal Register. And now today, or I guess just a day or two ago, it might have been yesterday. We'll see the date here. February 15th, right there. So they're now opening up applications for that. So I want to make you aware of that, just show you a couple of things today, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. So you see here, I've linked to this page where you can download the news release and the public notice. You see FCC launches an Enhanced Competition Incentive Program. We'll take a quick look at these. Right here, this is the press release. So the FCC today launched the ECIP, Enhanced Competition Incentive Program, which incentivizes wireless licensees to make underutilized spectrum available to small carriers, tribal nations, and entities serving rural areas, in furtherance of the Commission's 100% broadband policy. So the idea here is to get broadband in areas that maybe don't have it, and also to increase competition in some areas, to be able to provide spectrum in some areas maybe where they can provide a competitive service. Beginning today, the FCC's Wireless Telecommunications Bureau will accept applications as part of this creative new program that encourages licensees to partition, disaggregate, or lease spectrum to better match available spectrum resources with entities that seek to provide needed services to underconnected communities. I'll explain that partitioning and disaggregating here in a minute. Today's action builds upon the order, and if you click there, you go to the report and order, which again was from July 2022. I linked to that as well in the description of this video. That order was adopted by the Commission in 2022 in congressional goals in the Mobile Now. It's a fantastic acronym. I'll see if we can find that. The goals to act to incentivize beneficial transactions in the public interest. Under this program, transactions involving small carriers and tribal nations can qualify, as can those involving rural-focused entities. All parties to qualifying ECIP transactions will benefit from longer license terms, an extension on construction obligations, and more flexible construction requirements. So that is some of the incentives, for example, for the carriers that have the spectrum that maybe want to lease or divide it up. That may be something that they're not using. They then have that will increase their lease time by 5 years, or their ownership of that spectrum by 5 years. So that's a significant incentive for them. So that is the news release. Then we've got the public notice here, similar kinds of information. Mentions that they'll be accepting assignment and lease applications to participate in the program. It establishes the incentives. New program encourages licensees to do the same thing there. So it mentions the rules became effective on October 20th, 2022. That's when it was published in the Federal Register. So then here, beginning February 15th, yesterday, they'll accept the applications. A licensee may file a transaction application seeking ECIP benefits by electronically filing Form 603 for assignments, partitions, and disaggregations, or Form 608 for lease arrangements. So this would apply to the holder. I think the licensee. Yeah, that would apply to the holder of the license. Then there's information down here for any additional inquiries regarding technical support, etc. There's an email address there as well. A couple of things there. So again, you've got a link to this site here where you can download both of those things that I just looked at. And then there's also a link to this right here. So here's the acronym. So this is the huge report and order back from July of 2022. But in making, so it's in the making, okay, so here's the acronym. In the Making Opportunities for Broadband Investment and Limiting Excessive Needless Obstacles to Wireless Act. So that's where the acronym Mobile Now Act comes from. Congress directed the Commission to consider steps to increase the diversity of spectrum access and the availability of advanced telecommunications services in rural areas. In response to this Commission direction, or congressional direction, the program we adopt focuses on furthering these important goals. In particular, today's action will foster increased spectrum access for small carriers and tribal nations to promote greater competition in the provision of wireless services, and will facilitate increased availability of advanced wireless services in rural areas. So that's kind of the intro to the report and order back from, again, July of 2022. So I wanted to just real briefly also kind of describe a couple of important points here. So there are two prongs in this program. There's prong one, and in that one, the eligible areas are rural or suburban or urban areas. So really it applies to any area. So prong one is for any area, but the eligible operators are limited. It says here you see tribal nations are included, as well as small common carriers, those with 1,500 or fewer employees that are not affiliated with a licensee holder. So basically, common carriers, telephone companies, I think what you're looking at there. And really, with 1,500 or fewer employees, that's not a real small telephone company. I know there's lots of independent telephone companies out there that have way fewer than 1,500 employees. So this, I think, would be available to lots of different carriers or telephone companies out there. And then you've got the licensee holder, the owner of the spectrum, must lease or assign at least half of the spectrum rights. And what they mean by that is if you've got, for example, 40 megahertz of spectrum in an area, you have to lease or assign at least half of that. That would be the deaggregation part, or disaggregation, I think they called it, where you're taking part of your spectrum and disaggregating a portion of it and then letting somebody else use that. And again, this is going to be unused spectrum. So it could be that the licensee holder doesn't need all 40 megahertz. They're saying, we can get by on 20 megahertz. We'll go ahead and disaggregate that and let somebody else use that portion of spectrum. It also needs to be at least 25% of the geographic area if it's 30,000 square miles or less, or at least 10% if the area is over 30,000 square miles. So you've got to, and the reason for this, especially something like that, is they want to make sure that these folks that are doing this don't do the absolute minimum, just lease hardly anything in order to get these incentives of being able to extend, for example, the license for 5 more years and construction time for additional year, those kinds of things. So they want to make sure that it's a significant outlay of spectrum that they're letting somebody else use. And then the other, let me see, the other one. Whoop. How do I get that? Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember how I get that. How do I get to the next slide? Can't remember. Hold on. On here, so that we can see it. There we go. I couldn't remember what key was going to advance that. All right. Eligible areas on prong 2 would be rural areas only. So unlike the prong 1, where it could be any area, it could be even urban, this is just really going to apply to rural areas, but it opens up the operators that can actually participate here. So you see, it's pretty much any operator that would be, generally qualified to do this. So you got large or small carriers, doesn't matter, common carriers or non-common carriers. So non-common carriers, you'd be talking about WISPs, for example, wireless internet service providers, just independent WISPs or other independent internet service providers, rural electric co-ops. I think probably municipalities might fall under that. Again, tribal nations, critical infrastructure entities, that's your rural electric co-ops. And then other entities, large or small, operating private wireless systems. So again, that can be pretty much any operator that you would think would be qualified to do this. It's maybe already in the business. So more open, but just a rural area. So they're trying to focus on smaller operators. And again, they don't have to be that small, 1,500 employees or less anywhere, or looking at just rural areas, and then any operator that's in that rural area, trying to get that spectrum spread out in those particular scenarios. And then here, as far as the license holder, they must lease or assign. So but when it says lease or assign, the lease, I think, would be just saying, hey, we can lease this whole area. we can lease this whole area of spectrum versus, again, disaggregating it or leasing or assigning just a portion of a geographic area. So at least half of the spectrum rights, same thing there. So for example, again, just if they've got 40 megahertz, they got to do at least 20. And at least 300 contiguous square miles for those licensed areas that are 30,000 square miles and smaller, with appropriate upward scaling for larger licensed areas. So it's saying here, being rural areas, it might be smaller areas. So if it's less than 30,000 square miles, 300 contiguous square miles needs to be included there. But they will figure out, I guess, something upward scaling for these larger license areas as they need to do that. So again, this is something that has been out there, we've known about for quite some time, but now the FCC is finally ready to start taking those applications. So if that's something you're interested in, again, I've got links that you can check out more in the description of this video. And if this was helpful, go ahead and give me a like on the video, a thumbs up, I'd appreciate that. If you're not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you will be notified when I'm live. Thanks for joining me today. See you next time. Bye-bye.